I was asked to deal with the kind of the perfection.
What does it mean?
Perfectionism. Do we sin? Do we keep on sinning? That type of question. It's kind of a big question that's been being pushed around.
Yes.
And the other one, I was asked to talk about Christ becoming king, and what does that mean, and how does that play out, and wherever you are in your thinking with that. Actually, those two things, the two things are connected. The completion of the work that happens in Christ always brings into question, what does that mean in terms of how the completion of His work in us, right? And so, and I'll get into that a little bit. But I just want you to know, I have no set agenda. I'm here wherever. We can go wherever you want to go. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about, study whatever you ask, whatever questions. I'm just here trying to be a blessing to you, and I appreciate you guys coming, and you're a blessing to me. I thank you so much for your prayers for me and my family, and I've been praying for you guys and for your families and for your churches as well. And the world is changing, and what was normal is not going to be, and it's going to get worse and worse and more crazy. And so it's time to be serious about our walk with God, and serious about praying for those around us, that they could see the importance of the decisions that they're making. And the more you walk with God, I think the closer you walk with God, the more you realize the importance of even the littlest decisions, that everything is important, that nothing is not important. And the importance is that, see, what happens is information can be exploitive. Information can be addictive. I mean, I can get high from information. Mm-hmm. So neat information is cool. And we love, and of course Adventists love to collect neat information, but the problem is it never transfers into transforming their life. It doesn't change who they are. They just put on the show, oh look, I have all this knowledge, so Eve believed that if she had this knowledge it would transform her state, that she would arrive. We still believe the same lie, that if I have all this information, then I'm okay with God. No, that has nothing to do with it. And so if the information doesn't translate into transformation, then it's actually not good. It actually becomes a detriment, because I think I'm okay with what I know, when in fact I'm lying to myself and I'm dying. So it's important. It's important that you build a bridge, you lay a foundation, and that you don't just give neat information to people, because that's dangerous. It's like giving a baby a gun that's loaded. You wouldn't do it. And learning that is hard, because we don't realize how addicted we are. Our flesh will grab hold of anything to make ourselves feel better or convince ourselves that we're okay. That's our flesh. And that's what we're fighting. It's our enemy. Your enemy is you. My enemy is me. And we need to realize there is no other enemy. I don't have any other enemy but me. Wow. When I conquer this enemy, I'm done. And I can be at peace with everybody. And it doesn't matter how they treat me or what they say, they're not my enemy. They are their own enemy. And what they're doing, whether they're hurting me or somebody else, they're doing out of their own hurt. Hurting people hurt other people. And they can't do anything else, because they're slave.
That's why we're not supposed to take them personally.
So we are our own enemy. And once this enemy is conquered, then I have overcome. And no matter what happens, I can be at peace, because God knows what He's doing. We say we're only surrendering what we know, which is only part.
Yes.
But when we say we surrender all, the idea is I'm surrendering all that I know now, but as you show me more, I need to surrender that. Most people live their life saying I surrender some, and they surrender what is convenient to surrender. But that's why their life has not changed. Yeah. Because if you're
that makes total sense.
If you're playing God with any part of your life, then you're playing God, and God is not God. Right. So if God is either God totally or He's not. And so now we say we're surrendering all, but I can only surrender that which I know. No. But then I'm also leaving myself wide open, that God is going to show me more. And as He shows me more, I'm going to continue. That's why we die daily, right? We surrender our lives every day, because I learned something more about myself today I didn't know yesterday, and wow, I need to surrender that, right? Or I think that I'm over something. Or I think that I've conquered something, or when usually we've only shoved it so deep in the closet we don't know it's there, and we think we've dealt with it. But the truth is we haven't. And many times there's areas of our life that we don't conquer because the seed, the problem that God is trying to fix is something deeper, much deeper. And the surface thing that we wrestle with that keeps coming back at us is not the issue. So we think we can deal with that bad behavior or that tendency or that thought or that habit if we could just erase it. But that visible tendency or action is connected to something deeper in us that's broken,
Right.
that's damaged. And God is not going to remove the evidence for you to reason from, because how could you then reason back to the problem? So he's like Paul says, take this away. And he goes, no, I'm not taking it away. No, there's a deeper issue that this surface thing needs to, and that's why we're not to judge somebody else. No, I thought, well, Nancy, she keeps doing the same darn thing. How come she doesn't grow? Well, wait, who am I to say that? I don't even know what the issue is. And she may be surrendering her life to God, but God is not taking that away, because he's not going to, because he's trying to save her. And you don't remove the evidence that the doctor would need to reason to find out what the real medical problem inside is. No, that would be stupid. So God doesn't do that. He doesn't do surface fixing. He's into fixing hearts and minds, to fixing the equipment inside of us. And once we're cleansed on the inside, we're fixed on the inside, then the outside will become what it's supposed to be. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's why we talk about we are the enemy. But the thing is, we don't even know ourselves. I mean, Jeremiah 17 is very, very clear text. Our hearts are deceitful and desperately wicked. Who knows them? Right? We don't even know ourselves. Right? We lie to ourselves about ourselves all the time, and we actually believe the lies that we've told ourselves.
We justify them.
Yeah, we rationalize away. So we are deceived, and our picture of ourselves is so out of touch with what God sees, and God is trying to bring us back to see Him as He is. We must see ourselves as we are. That's part of the process, and that's an intimate part of the process. That's what starts in the Garden of Eden. You've heard me before, but when God draws near, Adam and Eve are clothed with fig leaves. They're lying to themselves, and so and even though when God draws near, their comfort level drops, and they think the problem is God. Well, of course they think the problem is God, because they're certainly not going to own their own issue, right? The problem can't be me. And when God talks to Adam about it, well, he blames Eve, and Eve is blaming, everybody's blaming somebody else, but nobody's owning their own issue because it's too uncomfortable. I'll die. If I own my issue, I'll die. Well, part of you will die, but that's the part of you that needs to die, right? And of course, if you die with God, then isn't He the one that can take the dead and bring them back to life? And so that's the point. We're supposed to be dying to sin so that we can be restored, resurrected in Christ to rightness, to newness of life.
Something clicked in on me on it the other day that you had said, and you said, we were talking about addictions and stuff, and you said the addictions are there because they're a symptom of the problem underneath, a character defect or something that's causing it. And I was sitting looking back over my life and all these addictions he'd taken me out of, but now he's getting down to the bottom of the onion, and he's pointing out the things that were firing those things all the time, because I couldn't figure out why criticism bothered me so bad, and I traced it back to my family. And when I came up was what we were watching a video over the thing, and it came up with he was talking about the root of rejection and the root of bitterness. And I went, oh, I thought I'd forgiven them.
Yeah.
And I went back, and it's like you had in a way, but you hadn't totally. It went back further. And when I confronted that and I prayed about that, now I don't know if it's totally gone. I hesitate to say anything's totally gone
You'll
anymore.
find out.
But it feels like
It'll come around.
But it feels like it got confronted for now, and now it's gone away. Because I kept going back. I was driving them nuts. I kept going back and going back and going back. And Donnie and her were going nuts, and Nancy, and I'm like, Gene, why do you keep going back? I said, because God's trying to show me something there, and I haven't got it yet. I don't get what went on or what he's trying to show me. So he keeps taking me back there. It's not me that's taking me back there. He's taking me back there until I see.
Yeah. Well, and there's dangers on both sides, and that's what we need to learn to walk with God, right? Because I I can milk a problem for sympathy and attention just as much when I'm looking at something. I can talk to you about woe is me because when I was a kid this happened to me, and I'm looking for sympathy and attention rather than me going back to see what actually happened and then go over the ground when God says, okay, when you were 4, this is the choice that you made to survive, which actually damaged you. Do you want to stay this way, or do you want to be changed to be transformed, to fix the equipment that was damaged at that time? So there's games that we play with ourselves, and we can play with others, and we will do anything in our fallenness to make ourselves feel better, or to exploit a situation, or to convince ourselves that we're okay, we're the victim, it's somebody else's fault. And see that's part of the danger of God taking us back through, because the parts that He's taking us through are usually very emotionally charged situations. That's what imprinted it on your mind when you were a child. Children don't reason. Their brains really haven't developed yet. They function by raw emotion, right? And so the things that have shaped you and things that have shaped your children usually happen to them when they were very young. And these traumatic experiences just imprinted on their emotions, which imprinted it in their mind, something they can't forget. Now they see it through a child's eye, and the point is that they made a choice based on the emotion that they confronted, and they didn't know how to handle it, so they make a survival decision. But that damages equipment. And God needs to go back and take them over that ground and then fix that equipment that was damaged, to fix that damage. And He does it only by our will, our choice. Because God doesn't just barge in and fix things, right? So He shows us. And that's why you go through your day and something will happen. All of a sudden some strange thing happens, comes up when you were 10, or maybe that high school boyfriend or girlfriend, something comes up crazy. You go, where did that come from? Well, excuse me, pay attention. God is showing you something. He's showing you something that happened before that made you who you are, and He's asking you, do you want to stay this person, or do you want to choose differently, so that you're not, so this event doesn't take over your whole life, right? And so this is why He takes us back. Now, I don't know. I'm not. If there's enough said there, that's what we're talking about. The enemy is me. Okay, and we think, well, I know me. Oh yeah, okay. Well, as soon as you say that, you're making evidence that you don't know. And this is where I'm starting here with Peter. I want to talk with Peter. I love the way Mrs. White talks about. Poor Peter. We always pick up Peter, but Peter just opened his mouth. He was doing what all the other disciples were doing. He's just the one that opened his mouth and put his foot in it. Right, but all the other disciples are doing the same thing. Well, they're too quiet. They're quiet. They're not going to say anything because they know that if they say something, they'll be wrong. So they're being safe by being quiet. Peter's being safe by trying to take control of the situation. That's Peter's personality, right? But God is going to use that. And this is let not your heart be troubled. And Jesus is spending time with His disciples. Jesus knows that this is the last time that He's going to spend with His disciples before He's crucified and before their whole world falls apart. And they think they know what's coming. They think they're ready, right? And of course Jesus knows they don't know what's coming and they're not ready. And He's telling them, He's told them that they're not ready. So here goes, and after Him they went out, and they go through the crowded streets, they make their way passing the city gate, and they slowly proceed. Each is busy with their own thoughts. They're all in their own little world. As they begin to descend toward the mount, Jesus said, in the tone of deepest sadness, all ye shall be offended because of me this night. For it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. So Jesus is telling them what's going to happen, right? So the disciples listened with sorrow and amazement. They remembered how in the synagogue at Capernaum, when Christ spoke of Himself as the bread of life, many had been offended and turned away from Him. But the 12 had not shown themselves unfaithful. Peter, speaking for his brethren like he always does, had then declared his loyalty to Christ. Then the Savior had said, have I not chosen you, the 12, yet one of you is the devil. By the way, they're all supposed to be asking what question at that point? Is it me? And the answer is yes. Right? Now notice it says, in the upper chamber, Jesus said that one of the 12 would betray Him, that Peter would deny Him. But now His words include all of them. Okay. By the way, it's interesting. She says here very clearly that Judas betrayed Jesus. It was a 3-stage process. What was the 3 stages?
Deny, repay, and perform.
That's
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
the same thing that Peter does, that we look at Matthew, that shows very clearly the 3 steps of deny, recreating, performing. That's the very same thing that Judas does. By the way, whenever we sin, walk away from God, that's always, those 3 steps are the process. They're absolutely the process. Just as the 3 angels' messages are the 3 steps of restoration, deny, recreating, performing are the 3 steps of destruction, sinning. If you're going to sin, that you deny, you recreate, you perform. And of course, we see Judas performing when he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane, right? He walks up to Jesus and gives him a hug and a big kiss, right? And he knows what he's doing. What is he doing?
Giving a sign.
He's killing him. And he knows he's killing him,
Yep.
right? So this deny, recreate, perform, this is what we do. That's why it's so hard for us to know ourselves, because denying is the first step, right? And when I deny reality, I don't know it anymore. I actually act like it's not real. That's what recreating and performing is all about. So how can I know reality when I'm doing everything I can to erase it and then recreate another reality based on how I feel? So notice, this is what she talks about. And she talks about Peter. She says, now Peter's voice is heard vehemently protesting. Although all shall be offended, yet will not I. In the upper chamber he had declared, I will lay down my life for thy sake. Jesus warned him Jesus had warned him that he would that very night deny his Savior. Now Christ repeats the warning. Verily I say unto you, this day, even this night, before the cock crows, thou shalt deny me 3 times. But Peter only spoke more vehemently. By the way, the amount of energy that we put into resisting the truth is compared to the amount of energy, time, and our personhood that we've wrapped up into our fallacy about who we are. So everything is proportionate. The laws that govern our existence, they make sense.
Yeah.
So if you have someone say, I say to Nancy, oh, you're doing this, she says, oh, thank you. Well, usually that means she doesn't have much invested. But if I nail her on something that she's invested her lots of time and energy and years in, oh boy, you better expect that the bear's coming out of the cave and they're coming after you with the same amount of energy that she's trying to defend, right? That's why it's hard for us. It's hard for us. These simple things are simple, but the real core things are difficult. That's why the tears start flowing when we start dealing with what's real, because self is dying, and there's a death and a mourning and a sorrow and a separation from that which was not real. It's the same as going to a funeral. It's a literal death process. Anyway, I'm sorry for the commentary.
Can I ask a question? So when stuff happened to me and I buried 13 years of my life, that was something a child did. It denied the reality to survive.
That's right.
And then when I said that to you over to the prayer meeting that time about what do I do about it, you said for me to turn it over to God and He'd bring things back little by little when I was ready to handle it.
That's right. Because if it all came back at once, it would probably destroy you. So our life is more like a puzzle, this puzzle. And what we have is we have all these pieces missing. Sometimes it's whole chunks of a puzzle. It can be whole years, especially if you go into an addiction like drugs or alcohol, because not only you're going to this addiction, but it actually destroys your mind so you can't reason and remember where you were. And the people that go into those addictions, when they begin to recover, they actually realize that emotionally they stop growing. So when I was 9 and I started drinking, then at 18 I figured out I should stop doing this. Well, okay, I'm 18 physically, but emotionally I'm still 9 years old. I didn't grow emotionally because the drug and the alcohol abuse stops the emotional growth. You're stuck, and so you basically you're a person in an age in certain places in your mind, and in physically in certain places, and emotionally. So the point is, God is trying to mature all of you. So He needs to deal with different parts of you, and He knows where you are. So this is why we need to be slow and to being judgmental with ourselves as well as with other people, because we don't really understand the extent of the damage.
The thinking was really strange though, because it's funny, I remember consciously making a decision, and I don't know at what point, that even though I had 13 years of my life, I couldn't remember that I was not going to let it affect me.
Yes.
Like, as if
I'm not going to let it affect me. Excuse me, there you go, you already did.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to let it affect me, but I thought because I couldn't remember it, that when it affected me, but my subconscious
That's what
remembered.
denying is, right?
Yeah. And it's
I
like-
just shoved it in the bottom of my closet. See, it doesn't bother me. Oh yeah, okay. We are so obvious, right?
Thinking was so strange.
So notice, I'll start here after the quote of Mark. He says, in their self-confidence, they denied the repeated statement of him who knew. Notice I love the word she used, denial, right? They were unprepared for the test. When temptation should overtake them, they would understand their own weakness. So I'm going to go on and try to explain it in terms of Peter instead of going off with my comments. It says, when Peter said he would follow his Lord to prison and death, he meant every word of it. But he didn't know himself. Hidden in his heart, and this is the part that's just really cool, because she explains the simple dynamics here. Hidden in his heart were elements of evil that circumstances would fan into life.
Wow.
Unless he was made conscious of his danger, these would prove his eternal ruin. So God is trying to save him. And how is God going to save him? God is going to work out all things together is all good. God is going to work circumstances that will fan into flame, fan the stuff that's in him so that he can begin to see it and then consciously deal with it.
He's showing him what's there.
He's showing him what's in his heart. So it says, the Savior saw in him, and this is cool, this is what God sees. The Savior saw in him self-love and assurance that would overbear even his love for Christ. Listen to this list. This is amazing. Much of infirmity, unmortified sin. What is unmortified sin?
Living sin.
That's right. It's sin that's not been put to death. To mortify something is to put it to death. Sin that's not been put to death. So she says, much of infirmity. By the way, infirmity is weakness, right? Weakness of flesh, weakness of your will, weakness of your mind. Sin not put to death. Carelessness of spirit.
What's that mean?
What's that?
What does that mean?
Carelessness of spirit. To care is to give something concern, to be attention, to be careful about what you're doing. Carelessness is to just run recklessly into stuff, right? And to think, oh, I'll be fine. I got this. I can do this. I got this on my own.
Impulsive?
Yeah, you could use that, right? Unsanctified temper. That's heedlessness in entering into temptation. So she has this amazing list that deals with the essence of someone, right? And she says, these list of things had been revealed in his experience. Christ's solemn warning was a call to heart searching. Peter needed to distrust himself and have a deeper faith in Christ.
Now this is from Christ Object.
No, this is Desire of Ages. Let not your heart be troubled. She says, had he in humility received the warning, he would have appealed to the shepherd of the flock to keep his sheep. See, if he had listened to the warning, he wouldn't have trusted in himself. He would have trusted in God. See, there's the essence right there. That's why she starts off with self-love. See, self is the enemy. So no matter what circumstances or situation that you find yourself in, God is using the circumstance to fan into flame the stuff in you that he's trying to get you to see so he can fix it. It has nothing to do with the other person. It doesn't matter how wrong you think they are. It doesn't matter how right you think you are. When it fans into flame something in you that you know is not right, then God is showing you, look, this is where you're broken. And you cannot say, it's Sue's fault. She was mean. She shouldn't have done. No, it has nothing to do with her. The circumstance, God is using the circumstance to fan to flame the things in her that she needs to see. But now I claim I can see clearly what's going on in her, but somehow I can't see what's going on in me. Excuse me, that's a lie. Right? Jesus talked about a log in your eye. If you have a log in your eye, can you see the splinter in somebody else's eye? And if I think I can see the problem with somebody else, but I can't see my own problem, I'm lying to myself. That's denying, recreating, and performing. That's a lie. And then we do that to rationalize and justify that I'm okay, that the other person's the problem. I would have never done it, or I would have never said it, I would have never thought it if they didn't. Excuse me, that's not it. That's not. Do you guys watch that video you told me about? I haven't seen the video, but from what Sue shared with me last night, this woman has this dream or this vision, this idea that she's talking to God. And she's like in this room, right? Did God talk to her about somebody else's problem? Ever once in this discussion when she meets God, does God ever talk to her about how her mother or father or her uncle or somebody else's problem? No. Who did God talk to her about? Herself. That's it. And when we encounter God, this is the investigative judgment. When we encounter God, God is going to talk to me about me. He's not going to talk to me, and there's no justification. I can't say somebody else was mean to me and made me. Excuse me, look what they did to him on the cross. Did he allow any bitterness? Did he have any hatred? Was there any rationalizing way? Well, look at they're being mean to me, so it's okay for me to... No, never. See, whatever someone does to you does not justify the messed upness that's in us. And this is what God is trying to show. He's trying to show us ourselves so we distrust ourselves, because we were created as creatures to be dependent upon God. In heaven, everything will be right. But you know what? In heaven, you will be totally dependent upon God for life and breath and strength and health and all things. You'll never say, oh God, I'm in heaven now, I can do this on my own. That'll never happen. There's no such thing as on your own. Right? It's like the grass doesn't grow by itself. The sun doesn't shine by itself. It never happens. So this lie that creation can function on its own was Lucifer's lie. And completion, maturity is total dependence upon God. Recognizing that total dependence is on God. I mean, who right now is the one that's making the cells in your body take in water and take in nutrients and put out the stuff that's not good? Well, how's that working? Are you doing that? No, who's doing that? God's doing that. I mean, every little thing he's making work, right? And so it's just a realization we're coming to a realization of reality. This is not God punishing us for what we've done.
That's your God circle.
That's right. So God is just trying to bring us back, because we talk about the end of the world. I'm sorry for the little side note, but we talk about the end of the world. The end of the world is God coming back and God taking place, filling all reality back again. What happened when we sinned? We told God go away, and God backed away. By the way, but God didn't back away, we would go poof. Right? So we ask for time and space because we want to show him that we can do it on our own. Okay, go ahead, there you go. Show me how you can do it on your own. Whether you're Lucifer or us. And by the way, how well have we done?
Where are we now?
Do we want to keep doing it on our own? No. And that's what God's asking. You want to keep doing this on your own now? And it's going to come to a point where God's going to say, okay, I'm done. Those that want to do it on their own, what you're choosing is non-existence. Yup, okay, poof, they're gone. Because that's what they chose. Those who don't want to do it on your own, you want to be dependent upon me? Okay, thank you. There you go. And God's going to give people what they've chosen. And we call that the end of the world. Right? And then when we get to heaven, we will be in heaven and we will be constantly understanding and praising God for everything. The bird that flies by, or the tree, or the flower. God, you're so awesome. And the stuff that he does in us. So total dependence upon God. That absolute dependence is what he's trying to... Because that's reality.
Yeah, in him I live and breathe and have my being.
That's right.
You said in heaven.
Yeah.
You mean here.
Well, the new earth, but that'll be after the heaven.
But.
Right.
But we're to start here.
That's right. So we start learning it now. That's right. But I'm trying to get to the past the stage where there's no sin, because this idea, some people have this idea that when in heaven, well then I don't need God anymore, type of thing. And that's some of the false theology that goes on. Once I get to a state of maturity, well, I can do this on my own, I don't need God.
There's freedom in heaven.
We'll talk about that. But that's just foolishness.
That was Lucifer's...
That's right. Original lie.
first place.
That's right. And so, that needs to be done away with. Total dependence upon God is just the reality of who we are.
But total dependence on God is freedom.
That's right. That's right. Because total dependence upon God is harmony with his law, which is freedom. That's right. So this is what Jesus came to teach us. It's amazing.
That's the way he was.
This is amazing. Jesus was God. He was God. But he totally depended upon his Father for everything. Now, can you imagine? You could just speak and it would happen. But you don't speak. No, you totally trust God. Jesus said, the miracles that I do, it's not me to do it. The Father in me, he does the work. Jesus didn't do nothing of himself. Nothing. And he was God. He could have just spoke and it would have happened. They're tempting him to come down from the cross. Could he come down?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the disciples, oh, we're here to help you. They pull out their little sticks, right? And Jesus says, oh, look, I could ask the Father, he'd send 12 legions of angels. I don't need you and your dumb little stick, right? He's God. But no, he's God, but he functions as a totally dependent human being.
To show us that.
To show us that we, as totally dependent human beings, creatures, we can totally depend on God and he will take care of us. God is faithful. And Jesus did what he's asking us to do, which is to surrender ourselves totally to him and trust him that he knows what he's doing.
Yes.
That kind of explains some of the dichotomy that I'm feeling because on one hand, I've never felt more frail or seen my own sin as much, and yet at the same time, even though I feel weak, he seems to be able to function through me because I can't depend on myself. I got nothing to depend on. I have to lean on him for everything because I can't do it on my own.
And that's the way it has always been. We just lie to ourselves, right? It's always been, we're always dependent upon him. We are dependent creatures. That's the way we work. I mean, you don't believe that? Just try stop eating for a couple months and see what happens.
But
Right?
But that self-talk in my head from growing up, you know, that you're supposed to be self-sufficient, it's still
What we
there.
all learn,
Yeah, well, that's the survival mechanism
Uh-huh.
of fallen creatures, to be self-sufficient. And that's putting up walls of safety that will keep me from being vulnerable and being hurt by other people. Because I've let other people in and they've hurt me, so I'm not letting anybody in anymore. Tough luck. I'm on my own.
Well,
I can do this on my own. I don't need you. Well, actually, the fact that you're telling me you don't need me is proof you do need me. But you don't want to acknowledge you need me. So every time we speak, we actually reveal the lies the games that we play, right? So you mean nothing to me, Brian. Well, the fact I'm saying that proves that he does mean something to me. Because if he didn't mean nothing to me, I wouldn't even say it, right? So the things that we say, I'll never do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'll never do that, I'll never be like that. You ever hear yourself saying that?
Oh, yeah.
That's a lie, and that's a wall that's been put up that is later going to take a lot of energy to tear down. And the more time and self you invest in that lie, the more time and the more pain and sorrow is going to be tearing that lie down. And when Satan hears you say you'll never do that, he laughs because he knows he's got you. Because we don't function in terms of always and never. We're finite creatures. We don't know what that means. So we lie to ourselves, and we lie to ourselves in many ways. And this is what God is trying to show us, because he's trying to save us.
He sure is patient.
So it said, had he in humility listened, he would have trusted in God. Then the hand of Christ was outstretched to grasp his hand. Well, he talked about the Sea of Galilee. So now if he had cried to Jesus, save me from myself, he would have been kept. See, self is the enemy. But Peter, what's that word after? But Peter did what?
Felt.
He felt. What does that mean?
Emotion.
He functioned by
Emotion.
his feelings.
Yes.
See, Peter felt that he was distrusted. Poor Peter. Simply for me. Poor me. Oh, they're distrusting me. Oh, my feelings are hurt. Right? Notice. Then it says he thought it
Cruel.
So where does his mind go?
To
His mind becomes captive to his feelings.
Yeah.
See, he describes. Where does it go?
Right in the dead center.
Right here.
Right above it.
Whoop, I shifted it. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. But this is just really cool because she gets it. What does it do here?
If you want to point.
Sorry, I just lost the spot.
673.3.
Thank you.
Pastor Tim got the point.
There it is.
But this is so critical, and you share with people, and they look at you,
No, I don't think you did.
and then they say, "Oh, I understand that." It's like, no,
This
yeah.
is it.
673.3, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
671. Okay, this is a long chapter, as you can tell. Jesus had a lot to say to his
There
disciples.
it is.
Okay.
Just
No,
you're right at the top there, but if you just go a couple more lines, right there.
Yeah. So it says, but Peter felt. Where am I? But Peter
there.
felt. See the feeling word? That he was distrusted. The sympathy. And then it says, and he thought. So what happens is that Peter feels it, And then his mind becomes captive to his emotions.
Yes.
He can't reason clearly because he's functioning on emotion, and his mind is now rationalizing in a way that that's okay to function my emotions because it's true. But it's not true, which is amazing that she begins to describe the process of his fall. So if he had trusted God, by the way, that's reasoning and will. That's not an emotion. That's a thought and then a willful decision. But no, it says he felt. So he feels something. God tells him the truth and his feelings are hurt. So now he starts functioning based on that feeling as if it's reality. Now he's already on the slope. He's already done it. It's just a matter of time before it's going to happen at this point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Boy, does this sound familiar.
So we don't see the problem until it bursts into flames at the end. We don't see the problem at the top of the mountain. The pebble falls. We don't see the problem until we see the avalanche at the bottom. But God sees the problem with the pebble.
Yeah.
And what we need to learn to do, and this is what mature Christians learn to do, is you learn to wrestle with the pebble at the top of the mountain rather than trying to clean up the mess at the bottom. Because you realize how much time and energy it takes to clean up the mess at the bottom. It's much easier to deal with the pebble at the top of the mountain than it is to mess with the stuff at the whole thing at the bottom. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that, you start seeing that in your interpersonal relationships. You start seeing that with decisions that you make. And how many of you would go back and being a teenager and make some different decisions based on what you know now from what you were doing then? Right?
Gee, I like
And
back
everybody
up
goes,
to
yeah. It's like, oh yeah, too bad I learned. Well, excuse me, God is trying to show us because he's trying to save us for eternity. By the way, that's the beautiful pebble at the top of the mountain. And the avalanche at the bottom is supposed to be, if I make the right decision at the top of the mountain, I have eternity to live in joy and peace. That's the beauty that's supposed to take place. But see, sin takes the law that was intended to give us life and it turns it into a law of death. That's what sin did. That's what sin does. So what God intended to be a blessing actually becomes a curse. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is it's just so neat how she nails it. But Peter felt that he was distrusted and he thought it cruel. He was already offended and he became more persistent in his self-confidence.
Because of all the energy he put into his
That's
life
right.
earlier,
Oh.
his self-confidence.
That's
I
right.
can do this.
My
I've done
personhood
this,
is based
I've
on I
done
can do it
this,
on my own.
I've
and
been putting my time in.
this is how I've survived in the past. This is how I'm going to survive again. Well, this isn't about survival. No, this is about death and resurrection. If you're into surviving, you're not going to make it into the kingdom of God. Right?
Yeah.
Flesh and blood does not inherit the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
If you want to be in the kingdom of God, you must die and be resurrected. As Jesus said to Nicodemus, you must be born again. That's what he's talking about. You need to become a new creation, a new creature. And to become a new creature, a new creation, the old must die. And if you want the old to survive, then you're going to die, but there will be no resurrection. There'll be nothing to raise.
Yeah. That's the battle.
So the enemy is ourself. So why do I say this? Well, because, see, the disciples were brought up that they were Jews and the Romans were the problem. And they were taught they're supposed to hate the Romans, and they're supposed to hate Samaritans, and they're supposed to hate all these people because they're the problem. And if those problems would go away, their life would be just fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them, I'm okay.
Yeah. They're clean and they're unclean.
You're right. And so we use our little human standards to measure somebody else is the problem, and I'm okay, they're the problem.
Well, we do the same thing right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Jesus, they walk with Jesus for 3.5 years and they just don't get it. Now, when Jesus goes to Samaria, does he say hate these people? No. He loves these people. And they're going, this guy's nuts. And the chief priests and the Pharisees actually hate Jesus because he doesn't hate people enough. He's nice to the Romans and he heals the centurion and he's nice to the Samaritans and he loves people. He doesn't matter who he doesn't hate people enough, so they have to hate him because he doesn't hate who they hate. And they don't get, and the disciples have bought into this, right? That somebody else is the problem and God is coming to save us. Well, here we are in our modern world and we're Adventists. And of course we have the truth. So God's coming to save us. The problem is who? Well, those Sunday keepers are going to chase us around the woods and try to make us go to church on Sunday. And, those mean Protestants are, and all these other people. The problem, we're just waiting for Jesus to come and save us, don't you know? I mean, we're ready to go to heaven. So we have the same mindset. But Jesus comes to his disciples and says, no, you don't get it. You're not getting it. You're not. I'm here to save you. Oh yeah, but I'm a Jew. I'm in Israel. I'm the remnant. I have all this. No, no. You're not converted from functioning under the law of death. You have not come into the law of life. And if you function by comfort level, if your comfort level controls you, then you are a slave to the law of sin, and you are dying, and you will surely die. You are not converted. Right information about doctrinal positions does not convert you. It doesn't mean it's not true information. It's just not the truth. And this is what we have accepted as truth to convince ourselves that we're ready for Jesus to come.
Well, if Jesus came right now, not much of anybody be saved, would they?
Well, that's why he's not coming right now.
Well, I like the next paragraph, though.
Yes.
It's
That's right. Because Jesus looks compassion on us.
The way you said.
That's where we need to look, right there.
He cannot save them from trial, but he does not leave them comfort. The trial is to save us. When our comfort level drops, stop grumbling and complaining and start praising God, because that trial is to save you. That's exactly the point. This is what the Bible makes so clear. James and Peter, and of course Peter writing his letter, his 2 letters is writing because he's experienced this. And the trials are for our good, right?
Yes.
He assures them that he is to break the fetters of death, and that his love for them will not fail. After I have risen, he says, I will go before you into Galilee. So that's the cool part, isn't it? Is that Jesus came to bear the death that was ours, that we might partake of the life that is his. He took our sin in which he had no share, that we might partake of his righteousness in which we have no share. That's the statement that Mrs. White makes in Desire of Ages. It's in chapter 1. She's making it very clear. This is the whole point that Jesus came. If Jesus didn't come, then we would be no hope, no answer for us, no way out. Because we can't save ourselves. But he bore the death that was ours, that we can partake of the life that was his. And that's just amazing stuff. And so what he does is he if I accept it, I'm actually transferred from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of his light. There's a literal transformation that takes place in me. That I'm no longer a slave to sin. I'm no longer a slave to darkness and death and the lies and the games. I'm now free to see reality as it really is. And by the way, when you see reality the way it really is, how do you look to yourself?
Not good.
Not very pretty. And by the way, the closer you come to Christ, the more
You see yourself.
the more ugly you're going to see yourself to be. And you're going to think that it's the opposite of the process if you function by your feelings. But your mind says, no. The fact that you're seeing yourself clearly as you really are is proof that you're walking closer to God. And so the more ugly I see myself to be, the more sinful I see myself to be, the more dependent I realize myself to be. That's the point. And don't worry, God's going to take the ugliness away. But the dependence, your mind and your will to be dependent upon God and to see things clearly, that's the part of you He's restoring.
Yeah.
And once you get to heaven and you are beautiful and handsome and all these other things that we look at ourselves to measure ourselves by will be okay. Inside we'll still be in our mind, we'll still be that ugly person. And what's going to remind us of our ugliness?
Oh, his
God.
scar.
The ugliness of Christ's body.
Yeah.
We'll see what our sin did to Him. We're walking around beautiful and He's walking around the ugliest thing in the universe. Only that ugly now is the most beautiful thing, and our beauty is now the ugly. We see ourselves as we will see ourselves as ugly in heaven because we did that to Him. The scars on His body will not go away, and they're not just little scars on His hands. That's foolishness in our mind. You know, when He resurrected from the tomb, Mary didn't recognize Him. He was so disshaped at the cross. His body was and he didn't just bear the little scars. No, that His body is scarred. When we see Him, we will be broken. Because we did that to Him. And we will see how beautiful He really is and how ugly we really are. And our hearts and our minds will be totally changed. And that's what God's trying to do now. He's trying to get us to see the ugliness of this world. How can we love it down here? Look at this mess.
Yes.
And we love it. We don't want to go. We don't want Jesus to come. We want to stay here. How can it be? That makes no sense. We just don't make any sense.
Yep.
But God is going to have a people that begin to understand. And they will reveal the beauty of Christ. The name of God will be on their forehead. And they will reveal to the rest of the world that if any of them choose, they can be free, they can have life.
Which in that video when he says, no longer will they see you, but they will see me.
That's right. Because it's about Him.
You mean in his resurrected body, he's
In His resurrected body, He's scarred. He bears those. He will bear those
That's what
scars
he
for
says, that
eternity.
you will see that. And that's why
He will
Thomas
never.
said to him, yeah, unless I put my finger in his,
And His
side.
side, I won't believe. Yeah.
I won't believe. And then when he saw him,
Imagine what
It's
his
not
back
pretty,
looks
huh?
like
So see, the idea is that we
in his head.
see Jesus. And when talking about the kingship stuff, I talk about Jesus is God, and we know in the beginning of the controversy when Lucifer raised these questions that at some point God brings all the angels together because Lucifer's questioning this relationship between God and Christ and Himself. Lucifer wants to be on the throne, right? And so God brings all the angels together to answer the questions, she says He places His Son Jesus. Well, we call Him Jesus, but actually it's Michael at this point because He's an angel. He places His Son on the throne and explains to all the angels that He is God, that He is the same as God, to be worshipped as God. He is God. And that's supposed to put an end to by the way, that's supposed to put an end to all the questions. It actually becomes the essence, the burst into flame, the controversy between Lucifer and Christ. Right? So Jesus, when He creates this world, and He creates it through Jesus creates everything. Right? He's the medium through which God has dealt with us. So He creates everything. So Jesus creates everything to answer the objections of Lucifer and to prove to Lucifer that his questions and his thoughts were wrong. And Lucifer was supposed to say, "Oh, I understand. I got it. You're right," and submit.
I can't create.
That's
I
right.
can't do
I'm
these
not
things
the
that the
creator.
king can do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he was supposed to. He goes through the same process Peter was supposed. Peter was supposed to say, "You're right. You're right. You know, I'm not right." But see, Peter doesn't. So that's what Lucifer did. So what happens is that when God creates this world, He puts Adam as the king of this world. He gives Adam dominion. And Adam and Eve were created in the image and likeness of God. They were to answer the objections and show that God gave creature dominion. He actually gave these creatures such dominion, such authority, that they could actually bring another living being into existence. They could have children and bring another being into existence. The angels going, why do you think sex is so played with Satan? He hates it. You have God-given abilities that He, who is more powerful and smarter than you, doesn't have. He can't bring another being into existence. You can, and you have. He's jealous. He's mad. That's why He takes sex and He drives it into the ground, because he hates that gift that was given to us. That's a reflection of God. So when He causes Adam to sin, He claims dominion of this earth. So now what God is going to do, what God does, is that Jesus Himself steps down from the throne of the universe and says, I will become a man. I will become a creature. And I will win back the dominion that was lost, that Adam lost, and to save humanity. But not only is He winning back the dominion that Adam has lost, but He's also settling the questions of Lucifer and the whole controversy in the whole universe. So this will never rise again. So there's multiple things happening at the same time. So Jesus steps down from the throne as God. Christ steps down from the throne as God, and he steps down, and then at Christmas we see Him become a man, a child, which is just mind-blowing stuff. Okay, and of course there's prophecy of the end right there. But so then He becomes a man, and He goes down to the depths of humanity to bear all the sin and death of humanity in Himself, so that He can save any and all who come to Him. And then he begins the process of going up, 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 up. Right? And this is the process that we've seen. It starts with his resurrection, and then we start seeing him go up. And in 1844, we saw him go from the holy place to the most holy place. He's gone up, up, up. But see, there's another step up that has to take place. And this is the step that I'm trying to share with people. It has to do with the completion of the controversy and the completion of the work of his salvation. He is actually going to be reinstated back on the throne as God. But the difference now is that he's not just God. He's also a man. And then this is amazing stuff. Because now you have a dependent creature on the throne of the universe that's God. Excuse me, I thought that's what Lucifer wanted in the first place. Right? See, this is why Lucifer's so ticked off. He wanted it to be him on the throne. But see, so this issue of the kingship of Christ deals with the restoration. And this is the phrase that the Bible uses, the restoration of all things. That he is going to restore everything to its rightful place. But to restore it to its rightful place, he has to be restored to his rightful place. And where is his rightful place?
On the throne.
On the throne of the universe. He's God. And as he goes up, as he has gone up, just as he went down to deal with and to bear the sin of humanity, as he goes up, what happens to him becomes benefits that happen to any who accept him or believe in him. Right? So just as we explain in the gospel, just as his death becomes my death, if I accept by faith his death for me, his death becomes my death. Right. His resurrection, if I accept by faith his resurrection becomes my resurrection. His anointing at Pentecost, for the disciples to receive it, becomes their anointing. His priestly ministry in heaven becomes their priestly ministry. Yeah. His kingship to the throne becomes
Because we're alive in him.
wow. The privileges and benefits of what Christ has offered to humanity. Mrs. White makes a statement that we will be closer to from God's restoration process from the fall. We will be closer to God and than if we had never
sinned.
If we had never fallen.
Mm-hmm.
That we are elevated to a state. Just think, our brother, our fellow brother is on the throne of the universe as God, and every one of us bows down to him. But all the other creatures, the angels, and all these other beings of the universe are going to come and bow down to him every Sabbath.
That's going to blow
We are going to be, as the Bible says, we will be kings and priests unto God. Because we will be a special race of people. That the King of the universe, God himself, is a son of man. And we represent him.
He is our brother.
Because we will abide in him and he will abide. See, this restoration thing is... And I'm sorry, it just blows my mind. That's just mind-blowing stuff. Now, this is the secret. This is the secret involved in the question about perfection and completion. Right?
Completion. Interesting. Okay.
I use the word completion along with the word perfection because otherwise it gets twisted, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
So the idea is this: as he completes the work of salvation, and that work of salvation is done in him, right? Then if I am in him, then that completion becomes mine, available to me, right? Just like his righteousness. We are saved by his righteousness, not our own. We are saved by his faith, right? Here are those who keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus. It's not your faith.
Right.
No, it's his faith, right? It's his righteousness. By the way, everything is about him. Because he's the source of everything, right? That's what we're learning. We're dependent upon him for everything. So it's not my faith. It's not my trust. It's not my righteousness. No, it's his. And if I'm in him and he's in me, then all that is his is now available to me.
We need to speak this for it to settle in.
yes, we need to process it in our mind, and then our will take hold of it, and then we need to act upon it. That's part of the completing process, right? Yes. And that's where I'm going to deal with. I'll deal with that. I'll show you that. But this is awesome stuff, because for years people have wrestled with this idea of perfection and how do I become perfect and how do I not sin so Jesus can come.
How do we reflect
And it becomes this idea that I have to fix myself and I have to have this will and I have to, I got to do this.
So-
And it's like no, that's not it. And we use the Bible to support this kind of an idea. And then the other part of this comes along, the opposite happens. Well, no, we can't do that, so we just keep sinning until Jesus comes, and we can't stop saying we have to sin. Those are the two ditches. It's like, use a parable or use a story. So a leper comes to Jesus, right? And he says, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. Okay, now finish the scenario. You tell me the theology that's correct. Okay, so here's the first scenario. Jesus forgives him his sin, but he has to fix the leprosy on his own. Does that make sense?
No.
You're laughing. Why is that funny?
No.
It's just so stupid, right? How can broken people fix themselves, right? By the way, that's the first scenario that Jesus forgives me, and then he empowers me. But I got to fix myself. I got to do it on my own, and somehow and if I don't do that, by the way, I can't be saved. So my salvation is connected to my works, and that's, by the way, this last generation theology, there's a tint of that in there. Mm-hmm. That's why you can't accept whole theologies. No, it doesn't work that way. Someone says, I believe this, go through it. Yep, is this biblical? Yes. Right? Because what Satan does, he mixes truth with error.
Yeah.
Right? So something sounds good on the outside, but you have to reason through according to Scripture. So this idea that he forgives me, but I do it on my own, well, that's foolishness. That makes no sense. It's not true. But it has the semblance of attracting people, especially strong, self-willed people that think religion is me making myself do what I'm supposed to do. And there's that part of us.
Well,
like Peter.
it's that self thing.
Right, it's that self. Okay, so here's the second scenario. The leper comes to Jesus and says, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. And Jesus says, I forgive you, but you got to stay a leper till some magical time in the future. Is that what happens?
Right when I come again.
Yeah. Is that what happens?
No.
In other words, I'll forgive you for your sin, but you're going to keep on sinning until some magical time in the future when we'll take care of it. Is that what happens?
No.
No. That's not a theology that comes out of what happened. What actually happens? Well, the leper comes to Jesus and says, if you're willing, you can make me clean. What happens?
He's forgiven
Make
me.
it clean.
Yes, I am willing.
I am willing. Yes, thank you.
I am willing, be
Clean.
clean.
Be clean.
So, is the leper clean?
Yes.
Yes.
Then, right then.
Yes. Is he whole? Is he restored? Is he right? Yes.
Right then.
Okay, now what?
Go and sin no more.
Now that you are whole, now you are whole. Now you have been clean. Now you have been restored. By the way, did God just fix his skin?
No.
Everything.
Right? See, and this is
Everything.
right. So now he can function in rightness. He can. Because he's been fixed. He's been restored to. And what is rightness? Total surrender to God. Total dependence upon God. It's not me going out and doing things right. No, doing things right is a result of me totally surrendering to God and being totally dependent upon God. And realizing that I'm totally dependent upon God each and every moment of the day. Right? That's rightness. So rightness isn't me doing everything right and having all the right answers and never saying anything wrong. That's not true. Right?
No. And when we do stuff, it's because His love compels us.
That's right. Because
It's nothing of ourselves.
that's the motivation inside of us that
yes.
generates the words and the thoughts and the actions.
Yes.
Right? And if I see something come up in me that's not in harmony, then what do? I call on God. I need you, fix me
I'm
here.
gonna die.
Yeah.
if you
Because
don't
there's
help
some
me.
mess going to come out of me that's going to destroy me and others around me, and I don't want this. That's not me. That's not mine. I don't want it.
And it's His kindness that leads us to repentance.
That's right. And he uses the circumstances to fan into flame that which is in us so that we can see it. And every day when I begin my day, I'm supposed to awaken from the dead. That's sleep.
Yeah.
Symbol of death. As I arise from the dead, every morning, the first thing that you do is
Thank you for your life.
surrender yourself to God. to call upon his name, to accept his life and his death and his resurrection as your life, as your death and your resurrection. And you ask him to fill you with his Holy Spirit, to show you the areas in you that you need to grow today.
Yes.
And the Lord's saying, today, if you hear my voice, don't harden your heart.
Yep.
Today, if I show you something about yourself, don't do a Peter thing, don't do a Lucifer thing, don't say, oh, I'm fine, and it's not my problem. Don't do that. Right? Because, by the way, if you surrender your life to him, today you will hear his voice. You will see him. He will speak to you. He will show you.
Mm-hmm.
He will. He died to save you. He's not going to leave you hanging.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when he shows me, the process of the gospel is the same. If we confess our sin, he's faithful and just to forgive us for our sin and to
Cleanse us from all unrighteousness.
He's not showing me so I can stay that way.
Right.
He's showing me so he can forgive me and then cleanse me. The justification, sanctification, it works together.
Gives me an
And he
opportunity.
uses today because it's present.
That's right, always.
It's present.
Right now.
That's right. Living in the past or projecting into the future is part of our denial.
Right. He doesn't say tomorrow.
Nope.
He says today. It's present.
Because
No.
God is the I am. God always lives in the present.
It lives in the today.
Always in the
Yeah.
present. All you have is the present. You don't have tomorrow. You don't have yesterday. All you have is the present. Oops, that's gone. Now it's next. Right? The choice. So your choices you make in the present. That's what he's talking about. That's why he declares himself, I am that I am. God always lives in the present. To him, all time and space is present. Come, twist our blow our minds there too. But so this foundation is critical in terms of going. And of course, like I said, you guys already have a foundation, but this foundation is critical in terms of going into then beginning to understand how this plays out in terms of the prophecies and the last day events and those type of things, right? At every stage of Christ's ministration, humanity misunderstood. They didn't get it. Because we twisted God, we made it into our own image, and we projected our expectations and our goals and our dreams and our desires into Him.
Yes.
Right?
Just
So
like Israel.
Jesus is going to be born. And everybody has this idea about the Messiah coming. This great big, right?
Yes.
And we have no idea that he's going to be born in a cow barn full of cow manure, like a homeless person with no place to go. That just does not cross our mind, right? No way. I mean, the angels come to tell the shepherds, and they got to warn them. Now look, here's you're going to find this babe in this barn wrapped in junk cloth
Well,
that
the
they
cloth
found.
that he was wrapped in is the cloth that people put for burial.
Right. Yeah, it's garbage.
Yeah, it's
Right.
it's that.
So
He was born to die.
So he's going to come, and it's not going to fit your expectations. And every step of the way, every step of his ministry, nobody understands it. Everybody misunderstands it. John doesn't want to baptize him because something's wrong here, right? The disciples don't recognize, no one recognizes it because he doesn't come fulfilling our expectations because he's so different than us. Right? So at every step of the way, whether it's Pentecost, everywhere, everybody always resists the next step of the process, and they don't understand it. And it isn't until after it happens that they figure it out.
Sure.
Right? So he's going to die on the cross. The disciples had this idea, wow, I want to sit next to him because when he gets in his kingdom, I want to be in this ring.
Yes.
Oh, you really want to be next to him? Oh, okay. You mean you want to be on that cross and you on that cross and him? Well, no, that's not what I meant. Oh, no, that's...
Yeah.
I mean, later
we
they
don't
get
want
it.
pain. We just want the glory.
So the point is that our expectation has always been wrong in terms of what happens next in the transition of his ministration. And so now we say, well, he's the high priest, and then he's going to come back. And what does that mean? Well, excuse me, here's our wrong expectation and our wrong projection of our ideas again. And somehow it's all about us. He's coming to save us, and we're in the center. And so this idea about him becoming king, we need to be careful. And we need to guard ourselves. We need to listen to what the Bible's telling us because there is no, oh, I got this wrong, I'll fix it afterwards. The second coming doesn't happen, then Brian and I say, oh, we got that wrong. We need to fix our theology so next time we get... No, there's no next time. Right? And this is why God is waiting. Because there is, once this event happens, the eternal destiny of every human being is determined.
It's done.
So God is not in a hurry. Because He doesn't want people to be lost.
Right.
He died to save them.
Yes.
This isn't a practice run.
That's right. There's no practice run. So the point here is that we can't, God is not going to allow us to say, oops, I got it wrong, like in 1844. And we went through some little disappointment, now we just need to make an adjustment in our theology and go out again. No, that's not happening this way, this time. So this process, this is the real deal. And God is going to be real. He's going to pour out His Spirit, and we are going to see reality the way it is. Which means what?
We need to understand.
We are going to see ourselves as we really are.
Yeah.
Remember, this is why He talks about Jacob's time of trouble. We use that phrase to describe the tribulation of the end. Okay, what was Jacob's time of trouble?
Inner struggle. Inner struggle.
That's right. God came to Jacob, and what did He show Jacob? He showed Jacob.
Yeah.
That's what He showed Jacob. And Jacob wasn't afraid of Laban, and it wasn't afraid of Esau. That was not what Jacob was wrestling with. No, Jacob was wrestling with himself.
Yeah.
Jacob was wrestling that he was a liar, that he was the cause of the problem. It's his deceit that caused the mess. He played the game, and he convinced himself that he was okay. Jacob's time of trouble was Jacob wrestling with Jacob.
Yeah.
And this is what every human being on this in this planet is going to face. They're going to face themselves.
Yes.
That was it.
And that was his rebirth experience.
That's right.
Because he then becomes
That's
Israel.
right. Because he learns
Yes.
to let self go, and he clings only to,
Yes.
I will
Do
not let
me
you go.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's it. No longer trust
I know. I
himself.
always praise that for Jacob.
I will not trust myself. I will not let you go.
Yes.
Where else could I go? You
Yeah.
have the words of life.
Yes.
There's nothing else. There is nowhere else. There's no one else. See, that's maturity right there. That's completion.
Yes.
This perfection that we keep hearing about. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's total dependence upon God, an understanding of my necessity to depend totally, and there's nothing in me that I will trust. Nothing. Right? So that's the time of Jacob's trouble. That's what's coming on this earth. Now you got all these people marching around the planet, think they can have a rally or hold signs in the street, and they're going to change the world. They're going to save the planet from global warming, and they're going to save the poor, and they're going to feed the homeless. No, excuse me, they can't take care of themselves. Why do they think they're going to fix the planet? No, this is insanity, and the world is getting more and more and more insane, right? And this insanity is not just out there. It's being accepted and accepted in our own doctrine and taught to our own kids in our own universities and our own even Adventist. It's craziness. How come humanism is becoming so prevalent? Because humanism is humans trusting in humanity to save humanity, to save the world. Excuse me, you can't even save yourself. How are you going to save the world?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And these things are going to mature together. The message of righteousness, which is the maturing of Christ, the completion of the ministration of Christ's salvation, Him becoming King, as He matures into rightness. This maturing of rightness and maturing of evil takes place at the same time. This is what the Bible describes. Yes. By the way, it has to happen at the same time. Because evil can't mature until it sees enough light to deny that light and then become mature, in other words, set in its way. And unless it denies the truth, then it doesn't become evil. Does that make sense?
Well,
Yes.
So if I don't know what I'm doing, then God doesn't hold me totally accountable for what I don't know what I'm doing. So God shows me what I'm doing, and He says, is that what you want? And if I say, yeah, now it's mine, I know what I'm doing.
What are the examples of in the Scripture where they come up together?
What's the examples? Well,
Yeah.
This is the prophecy. Some of them have been misunderstood, but Daniel 2, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I was going to take the sanctuary and take you to Daniel 7, I don't know, wherever you guys want to go, but in Daniel 2, you see the image, right? The image of gold, and then silver, and then bronze, and then iron, and then the iron and clay, right?
Right.
And we go through this process. And of course, it starts at the top and ends at the bottom, right? But But the truth is, you don't see the fullness of the image until the reality of the image until the cutting of the stone out of the mountain. By the way, that's not the second coming. That's not what it is. But anyway, the stone is cut. Remember, it says the stone is cut out of the mountain, but not by human hand, right? And then as soon as that phrase "not by human hand" kicks in, then you begin to realize, oh, what does that tell you about the image? It's made by human hands.
It's got man's fingerprints.
Man's fingerprints all over it. What does it look like? What is it in the image of?
Man.
A man. So the image itself. See, many people struggle with. Well, I see Babylon, Media, Persia, and Greece, and then Rome, and then I see divided Rome. But where's the papacy in Daniel 2? It's the whole image.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing,
That's what Paul said.
right? So it isn't until the stone is cut out of the mountain, but not by human hand, that you begin to realize, oh, the whole image. That's the problem. That men are depending upon themselves to save themselves and govern themselves and to govern the world and govern other men. That's the problem.
The image stands on the feet.
That's right. And when the image stands and is completed, that's when it is destroyed. Right? Because when sin exalts itself, that's its destruction.
When it is made manifest.
When it's made manifest what it is, that's when it self-destructs. So the stone strikes the image at the foot, and it's all turned to powder. But because dust you are, and dust you will return. That's what man is made of. But the stone itself, the stone is who?
Jesus.
It's Christ. And then that stone does what? What happens to the stone?
Grows.
Fills the whole world.
It becomes a mountain. Because mountain is kingdom, and a mountain is king. So the stone, by the way, the stone deals with judgment. Because if you look at Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, they're parallel. So the stone is the same as the judgment of Daniel 7, Daniel 9. The stone become a mountain is the part that Christ becomes king. And by the way, the stone becomes a mountain says it fills the whole earth.
Yes.
Which means the whole world is going to hear
Yes.
a proclamation of this king. And they are invited. Do you want to
choose.
become part of
Yes.
whatever?
Yes.
Where's that dust blowing around? Do you want to become part of the dust? Or do you want to become part of this kingdom? Do you want life or do you want non-existence? See, that message is going to go to the whole world, and the whole world will choose.
Yes.
And then that's the end. God will
Yes.
establish his kingdom. So what the Bible tells us in Daniel 2 is that the maturing of the image deals with the maturing of the revelation of God to his people. The same thing happens in book of Revelation. In Revelation you have Revelation 13 with the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, and you have this 666 maturing of evil. At the same time you have the Lamb standing on Mount Zion with his 144,000 and the maturing of righteousness. And the maturing of righteousness and the maturing of evil takes place at the same time. It has to.
It
because
has to, because
only by rejecting that righteousness do they become mature in evil.
Yes.
Because most of the people in this world don't even know what's going on. They don't even know what they're choosing over. They think functioning by their comfort level and how they feel is normalcy.
It is normalcy.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they think. But they don't know. They don't realize that. Well, I mean, some people begin to realize they're living on an insane planet, but you know. So there's a maturing in evil and a maturing of righteousness at the same time.
It's the same thing when he tells us of the maturing of the wheat. So
The wheat and the tares, right?
yeah,
Yes.
there's
Oh, very
that,
good.
right?
Yeah,
So there has to be.
that's right.
So when he comes, he's going to have
There's
those that have
there's only two
grown and
groups.
matured. Yes.
That's right. And everyone will have chosen.
Yes.
But of course, it begins with
Us.
the house of God.
Yes.
It begins with Daniel coming to power, and then those that see him in power and don't like it resist and try to have him killed. And then it turns on them and they die.
That's right. And it's
Yeah.
the
going to
king,
keep
going.
going.
the
And it
king
keeps
sees
going.
it and he declares it. Same thing with the plain of Dura, the image, and the men stand because you don't worship anything but the real God, the true
That's
God.
right. And this idea, see, we bought into some of this humanism. We think it's our job to get the gospel to the world. Did you bump your head somewhere? I mean, don't we have a problem with getting the gospel in our own heart and our own mind?
Definitely.
And then we can reflect.
So we God uses us to get the gospel to the world. We don't get the gospel to the world.
God uses us.
That's right. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're not running around Babylon giving Bible studies to everybody. No. What are they doing? They're making sure that their heart and mind is right with God. That as God uses circumstances, situations to fan into flame the issues that are in them, they are dying every day. By the way, if they didn't die every day, they wouldn't have been willing to die that day either. And so when God is the one that says, you simply stand, face your fears, and don't let death scare you. And they stand. And then God sends the gospel to the whole world. They, just like that. Why? Because they stood and they didn't cave into fear. They didn't get the gospel to the world. God used them to get the gospel to the world. And see, there's a difference. By the way, there's three of them because it's the three angels' message. It's the eternal gospel, right? And so we have this idea that we're supposed to get the gospel to the world. So we're out there trying to get the gospel to the world. Trouble is, by the time when I'm out there trying to fix somebody else, I'm not taking care of what's going on at home.
Being a bad example.
I'm not growing myself. I don't even understand what the gospel is. And so because of that, I then begin to twist the gospel or change the gospel to be this set of information that you're supposed to accept. And if you accept it, that makes you acceptable. And if you don't accept it, and excuse me, what did it do to change your life? Well, nothing, but
But it's true.
yeah, it's true.
Right.
Right.
So we
Know what I know.
conform it to our image
Yes,
instead
right.
of to the image
That's
of
right.
God.
That's right.
Because my image is sinful and I can't overcome it.
That's right. And then we somehow have to rationalize that away, that it's okay. Well, I thought you were the one telling me the gospel. You mean you're still a slave to sin and you're telling me the gospel?
So you're saying
Well, then
there's
why
no-
don't you live it yourself?
So there's no power in your God?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, but magically in the future, he'll say abracadabra and then we'll all, well then, okay, well, fine, I'll just do what
In
I'm
a
doing.
twinkling of an eye.
Yeah, right. And then we say, but we need to stop sinning. Well, yeah, it's okay to sin the way I sin, but just you can't sin the way you're sinning. But you can sin the way I sin, and that makes it okay.
Right. I hate people, but it's legitimate.
Yeah. Or it's okay to be full of pride and selfishness, but if you're drinking or doing drugs, it's evil.
Right.
So again, sin like I sin, that makes it okay. And so this is what happens to religion. It becomes boiled down to a behavioral mess. And then we wonder why our kids look at this and say, screw you, I have nothing to do with that mess. I don't want that.
Exactly.
I'm not investing my
And
life in that
and that's
foolishness.
why they're rising on that social issue,
Yeah.
right?
They have
Because
nothing else.
And they
Yes.
look at
Yes.
us and they think we're hypocrites because
Well,
we
well,
preach
we
something
are.
we
They
don't
look at us
live.
and we
We
know
are.
we're
We
hypocrites.
are.
But of
Yeah.
course, they don't realize that they're
Yes.
hypocrites as well.
They
but
don't,
they
but-
don't want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But the truth is, they'll come around
parents
because
are the
we were
problem.
teenagers, went through the same thing when we were teenagers, and we're just as hypocritical as the people we laughed at. Well, they're doing the same thing. By the way, they're bound to do the same thing. There's no other way out,
It's genetic
right?
program.
But the gospel, the true gospel, has to kick in somewhere. That God Himself bore our death so that we could be free from the dominion of death. I mean, if you sit and read Romans 5, 6, and 7, and 8 again, and how he talks about the dominion of death and the dominion of sin and the reign of sin, and then he shares the gospel in terms of his kingdom dynamic, that sin shall not have dominion over you, or Romans 6:12. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your dying body, that you obey the lust thereof. That's just his conclusion. If you don't let sin reign in you, if you don't function by comfort level, you're free from the dominion of death. Wow. Well, that's conversion. That's the gospel. That's why we talk about sinning. Do we stop sinning or do we keep on sinning? We talk about this perfection thing. Do we keep on sinning till Jesus comes? Well, look at Romans 6. How many times does he ask the question, shall I go on sinning then, that grace shall abound? What's his answer?
No.
Oh yeah, we have to. Of course. We have to keep on sinning till Jesus comes. Isn't that his answer? No, that's not his
God
answer.
forbid.
And how many times does he ask the question? Twice. And what's the answer? The same thing both times. Shall I go on sinning? No, absolutely not. What a stupid thought. You have died to sin. How can you live in it any longer? If you're living in it, that means you didn't die to it. Right? So he uses this whole and he uses this word dominion and reigning. He uses kingdom language to describe it. And he's literally saying, and he says it clearly in Colossians. It was Colossians, around 17 or Colossians 1. He talks about how he he transfers us from darkness into the kingdom of his marvelous light. See, the gospel is a transferring of my allegiance and my nature, my essence, and everything about me from one kingdom, one principle, philosophy, to under another principle, another king, another philosophy. I go from into darkness into the kingdom of his light. And the process from going from one kingdom to another kingdom is what the prophecies are explaining to us. There's a process of dying to one kingdom and becoming born again, or becoming acclimated, taught, and raised responsible person in another kingdom. This is what Daniel's talking about, Daniel 1, right?
Yeah, because when you look at the things that are people are accepting that are in Satan's kingdom, right? They're accepting all those things.
That's right.
Why wouldn't you, when you're in God's kingdom, accept those things that are of God?
Right. And there's a re-educating process.
Yeah.
By the way, that word should ring in your ear. What does the Pope want to do in May?
Yeah.
He wants to
Re-educate the world.
No, he's calling all the leaders of this world to bow down to his philosophy,
Yep.
and through them he's going to re-educate all the youth of the world. Does that sound like Daniel chapter 1 to
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he's going to re-educate all the people on this planet to his kingdom, his philosophy.
Yeah, his thinking.
Excuse
yeah.
me, the end is upon you. And
Yeah.
the battle is for the mind, and Satan knows what he's going. He's going after the mind of the youth. And by the
Yes,
way,
the youth.
it's not going to end. It's not going to stop with the youth.
No.
Of course, you're already being re-educated. If you watch TV, you watch the news, you watch any of these dumb shows or any of these movies, you are already being re-educated.
Yeah.
All this garbage is infiltrated into everything. They are re-educating you by the entertainment that you watch. So Satan knows how to play with the mind. Now, the idea, this whole base started on the idea of this perfection thing, right? This completion thing. You know, this whole question, well, can we stop sinning, or do we have to keep sinning till Jesus comes, right? The two signs that we talked about of God's people, here are these: keep the commandments of God. By the way, what is it? The biblical term for sin. What is it? Sin is what?
Transgression of the law.
Oh, and these people are keeping the commandments of God. Excuse me, then are they sinning?
No.
You can't keep the commandments of God and be sinning. And by the way, if it was okay to sin till Jesus comes, then what's the big deal about the Sabbath thing? What difference does it make which one of the 10 commandments I'm breaking? Oh, you got to keep the Sabbath, or you're going to get the mark of the beast. Oh yeah, so I can break the other 9. I just got to keep that one. What are you, stupid? No, that makes no sense. So I can break all the other ones, but as long as I'm keeping number 4, then I'll receive the seal of God. No, that's craziness. So the fact that it says that here they should keep the commandments of God, this means they're not sinning. They're choosing not to sin. Romans 6 again. Those whom you choose to obey, you are the slave to the one whom you obey. Whether the law of sin, which leads to death, or the law of obedience, which leads to righteousness. That once God sets you free, now you have a choice, and your choice is going to determine what principle, what prince you serve, and what principle you are following, therefore what kingdom you belong to. So the fact that they keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus means that they have come to the place that they so trust God and abide in Him that they will do nothing that's outside of God's will. That's the point, right? So this idea that, do we keep on sinning? That's people just rationalizing away their own defects that God is showing them. Well, it's okay. All of us have problems, so it's okay for me. Wait, where does the Bible say that?
Yeah.
No, let's be careful. No one's saying, the Bible also says, and John, by the way, John's one of the biggest proponents of this. You can go through any of the New Testament books and it'll show you the same thing. But John's one of the biggest proponents of this about, if we confess our sin, actually he starts in the 2 verses before that. If we walk in the light, as he is in the light, the blood of Jesus cleanses us from...
Well, we have fellowship one with another.
That's right, because we get to know each other.
Yes.
Thank you. And then the blood of Jesus does what?
It cleanses us.
From
Sin.
all sin. From all sin. Well, he uses the word sin there.
He uses the word
He
sin.
uses righteousness next.
Yeah.
So then he says, if any man claims to be without sin,
He's a liar.
He's a liar.
Yeah.
Okay? So just because you say we're keeping the commandments of God, you're not saying that there's not sin in you.
Right.
No, what you're saying is that you're not letting sin reign in your mortal body. You're not letting sin control your mind and your will so that you are obeying it. Because you're very aware that sin is in you.
You're not,
Are you with me?
You're not conforming.
So you're not coming and saying, well, I'm perfect. I'm not sinning. I'm not sinning. No. The idea that you have arrived is the furthest thing from your mind. Because you're walking close to God and you see all the mess. That's why you're clinging to Him.
And it's a constant battle.
It's a constant battle, but you are not. Your mind and your will is not surrendering to sin to give sin mastery. So John is very clear here, because after he says that, anyone who claims to be without sin is a liar. Then he goes on. But if we confess our sins, and faithful just to forgive us. So the idea of not sinning is not me saying that there's no sin in me. No. That's not true.
Right.
But we're not conforming it to it, because that
Yes.
verse that says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing
That's
of...
Romans 12, and we're going to go there.
Yes.
But the point, so the point is this, is that the lies take something that's true and take it to an extreme that makes it not true.
To one extreme or the other.
Just because I don't drink alcohol anymore doesn't mean that I'm an angel floating around off this. No, there's other issues in me, and God takes me through the process of showing me myself. Now, the end is different in this, because like the thief on the cross. By the way, we use the thief on the cross as crazy. He knew kingdom dynamics.
Yes.
He understood
By
much more
responding
than
what
we
he did.
give him credit for.
He called him
But-
Lord.
Lord,
When you come into
Your
your
kingdom.
kingdom,
he understood
remember
kingdom
me.
dynamics.
Yes.
That's why he click, ding, ding, yeah.
Yes.
He knew.
Yes.
So this idea that he didn't know anything, that's just foolishness. Okay, but the point is that he accepted Christ where he was. Okay, was he mature? Was he perfect? Was he all right? Was every issue dealt with? Absolutely not. And so when he's resurrected and he goes to the kingdom, he will be like a calf in the stall. The Bible, Malachi says, will grow like calf in the stall. He will grow through his issues because he has to. It's the same process God is going to use. God is going to show him, and he's going to choose over those issues. He's going to grow. He'll grow like a calf in the stall. That's why we have 1,000 years, right? So he will grow from his issues. What happens with this last generation that you keep hearing about is that because of the intensity of the light and the intensity of the pressure, the stress and the intensity, the growth happens much more quickly and happens much faster, so that the maturing takes place quickly. Okay? Now,
is that I'm sorry, but is that a reference to those that were called into the vineyard, that were all paid the
Yes.
same, yet the last ones that came
Yes.
they were there but for a time, but they received the same thing?
That's right.
That's okay.
that's right.
That just blew in my mind.
So the idea here is this, is that these people come to a place where their issues are dealt with. Now, you'll notice Mrs. White is also clear, it doesn't mean that there's no sin in them.
No.
She also states that after probation closes and they go through the plagues, she says God allows them to go through the plagues because there's still dross and worldliness in them that needs to be purged. But they have come to the place, and see, this is the completeness. The completeness is their mind and their will and the actions that come from them. They've come to the point of completeness that they would rather die than sin, because they know to sin is death, only it's eternal death, and to not sin is life. And what happens in this world, I could care less. Not sinning is life, because the sin is death. Does that make sense? So the point is they've come to this place where they're in their mind and their will. That's why we talk about the seal on the forehead. In their mind and their will, they are sealed. They are God's. They would rather die than can willfully transgress God's law, to willfully sin. Does that make sense?
Yes, because it's exactly what Daniel.
Now, let me show you.
Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. It's
Reflects.
exactly what they said.
Right. Let
You
me show you something about this completeness thing. That since you know personal kingdom dynamic, and then I'll stop talking and we'll take questions and go wherever you want to go. But remember, I've talked to you about.
Look at me.
Oh, did it die?
You're on 19%.
Remember, we talked about
Just hit
our
the
faculties and how we work, and we talked about, this is our senses, right?
Yep.
And this is our do faculties,
Mind and a will.
and this is our mind, and this is our will.
Which was his name.
By the way, this is the spiritual part of us that God is trying to fix. This is the physical part of us that is not going to be fixed until he comes. Okay? But this is to have dominion over this, not this over this. Okay? Now,
Filled with the Spirit.
James is going to talk to us about faith and works. And he does something that's very interesting because he's fighting an argument here. But he says faith without deeds is dead. You show me by. He says you show me your faith by. And then I'm sorry, there's a blank there in my mind to figure it out. And he says, but I'll show you my faith by what I do, right? So he combines this. Now this is the idea of completion. What happens is I gather the information. And in the kingdom of darkness, I respond immediately based on how it feels, and I respond to it. And then, as I showed you with Peter, I function on sensual discernment. And then what I do is my mind and my will become enslaved to what I have already, what I'm feeling. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So my higher faculties now are subject to my lower faculties, and I function by sensual discernment, how it feels. This is the lust of the flesh.
Unless we swallow our pride.
Yeah. Well, actually, until the gospel kicks in, we don't even realize something's wrong with us. We think we're fine.
Right. Yeah.
But so this is, by the way, the Bible is going to talk about this. This is the lust of our flesh. This is function by feelings. This is the issue that is destroying us. That's the self in me, right? Now, what happens when we talk about faith? Faith is reasoning from the evidence, right? Mm-hmm. So here I have the evidence. Instead of just responding based on how it feels, now I actually think it through, right? So now what I have is now I'm starting to function in rightness. But the problem is this: even if I choose to accept the truth that I know to be, if I don't do this in terms of my lower faculties, then am I complete? No. What happens is that I see the truth and I accept it, but I keep doing foolishness. So now what happens is, if I could, and the wheel's being played back and forth there, but if I could split this in half, James uses this analogy. He says, can you get fresh water and salt water out of the same spring? Well, so what's he say to us? How can you claim rightness and yet do evil?
Who are right.
Why? Because you're not complete. Why are you not complete? Because your will is not in control of your due faculties. Completeness, the restoration to completeness, is the restoration of your equipment in rightness, which means you work the way you're supposed to work. You get information from your senses, you send it to your mind, you reason from principle, which is the principles of God's law. Then you choose in harmony with those principles, and you make your lower nature, your due faculties, conform to the higher principles that you know to be right. This is completion. This is rightness. Then you respond to situations in rightness. See, that's completeness. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So this is maturity. This is righteousness. This is completion. This that I know what's right, but I do what's evil. No, that's not completion. That's schizophrenia. And brother, most of us live schizophrenic lives. Well, I know what's right, but do you do it? Oh, no. None of us could do that. Well, excuse me.
That's Paul. Yeah.
Right? So this is how James describes this idea of completeness. So we get the idea of completeness, perfection, as though, well, I'll never think a wrong thought, or I'll never say anything wrong, or I'll never, we have this insane idea. Temptation is not sin. Okay? James is clear. He says, we're tempted when we're drawn away by our own lust and we're enticed. And when sin matures, then it becomes when lust matures, when the temptation matures, then it becomes sin. When sin matures, then it becomes death. Right? So you're not the temptation to sin is not sin. It's showing you a weakness in yourself, an area that you can grow. But it isn't until the will concedes to the lust that it becomes sin. Does that make sense?
Yes.
When it becomes an action.
Yes.
When
you
act
partake
on that.
Well,
Yes.
wasn't
When you
Jesus
act-
tempted?
That's right. Jesus was tempted.
On all
And what
points
was
as we
Jesus
are.
tempted to do? To function by how it felt. Right? You haven't eaten for 40 days. Oh, you haven't. Oh, how does that feel? Well, here, just take this stone and fix the problem. No. I'm not fixing my own problems. That's God's deal. Well, you'll die. Well done. Doesn't bother me. That's God's problem. It's not my problem, right?
Right. So
He trusts his Father.
He never acted
Same
on
thing.
any of the things that you
Right.
expected.
So same thing happens at the cross. Satan tries to make it so excruciatingly painful that he will cave into his feelings and he'll let go of his trust in his Father. Jesus would rather die than sin, and he does die.
Yep.
Well, you'll die. Okay,
Come
I'll die.
off the cross.
Right? So this is the issue. This is why self is the enemy. It's the lust in me. It's all this in the world: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. These are the issues. By the way, throughout the New Testament, this word of lust, Paul talks about it in Romans. Peter talks about it, right? That the lust that's in the world, the corruption that's in the world through lust. This is the issue. So this is the issue that needs to be conquered, because this principle is under this law. This is the law of life and righteousness. This is God's law. This is the law of sin and death. That's Romans 8:1, right? Therefore, there's no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ has set me free from the law of sin and death.
Yes.
What the law could not do, because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteous requirements of God might be fully met in us, who walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So this is the completeness. So this is why doing is important. If you listen to Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, he talks about doing. Why is he talking about doing? Because if I just get it in my head and it's information, but I don't do anything about it, it will not change me.
Be doers of the word, not hearers only.
That's right, and the educators
And
know
to do his
you
good
can
will
sit and
is
tell,
acting out.
you can sit and give kids all kinds of information, but if they don't do anything with it, do anything about it, it's not education. You haven't changed them at all. It's this you are created to function a certain way, and God is trying to restore you to function the way you were originally created to function. And this is how you were created to function. You were given senses to gather information around you. You were given a mind to reason based on the evidence that you see, knowing the laws that govern the world around you, and then based on that you make a choice from the information you get, and then you're going to respond. And you have to respond. And sometimes that response is, I'm going to say and do nothing. By the way, sometimes that's the hardest response to do. Mm-hmm. But for most of us, that's the right response. Most of us do too much and talk too much, which I'm going to shut up here in a minute, but that's the whole
Well, you're
idea.
not talking of yourself.
So this idea of restoring us to rightness or completion, that's why it says the 144,000, they have the Father's name written on their forehead, and there's no lie coming out of their mouth. They are blameless. Right? It talks about them being virgins. Virgin means that they're not controlled by any lust. They keep themselves pure for their husband, which is the bridegroom. And they have received the name of their husband, the character of their husband, and their husband is Christ. Right? So they reflect the character of Christ. And they would rather die than be unfaithful to their husband. Mm-hmm. That's how they're described, right?
Yes.
So there is a group of people that are going to go through this pressure cooker process, and they are going to reflect the character of God, and God is able to do it. Yeah. They're not doing it from their own strength and will, and it's not them.
And that's what is said in that video when he says, "I will pour in that glass. It'll be nothing of yourself."
His love.
This is not something that we conjure up. We'll just pray hard and we'll beat ourselves up. No, that's not how it works. Because the maturing of the bride has to deal with what's happening to the husband. And this is the secret. This is the secret. This is the truth of the kingship of Christ.
So, you all set?
No, go ahead.
So, Are you saying that the people at the end time are exclusive in this process? Everyone is subject to this process, is that correct?
Yes,
Everyone throughout the ages has been subject to this process.
yes, but there are certain times when, because of the situation, they go through a process that's different,
Separated.
more extreme, maybe.
Huh?
So, for example, you would say Noah and his family went through a different situation more extreme situation than, and choose another generation that didn't have that kind of cataclysmic event happening. Now, it doesn't mean that the process and principle isn't the same for
That's what
everyone,
I'm asking.
but the intensity of the process
Sure.
is heightened.
Some might say that those living in the end times, just before Christ comes, that would be a heightened
Right,
experience.
and that's what the Bible.
John the Baptist.
That's the way the
experienced.
Bible explains it. That's
Elijah
right.
experience.
That's
And the
right.
people of his time.
That's right. But everyone, and this is what's important, death, the process of death is the same for all of us.
Yes. We must
Okay,
die to
so it
self.
feels the same. You don't have it any worse than anybody else, so quit playing the sympathy victim card. No, the death and the process of death that you are experiencing is not worse than anybody else's. Everybody, it's the same. It's hell and can't be faced, and we don't like it and it hurts. Okay, that's the way it is. And everybody thinks their process is worse than everybody else. My pain's a lot worse than your pain. Yeah, that's because I'm feeling it. But you feel your pain, you don't feel mine, you think your pain's worse than mine. I mean, that's the way we all think because we're selfish.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality of it. So what God promises is that He's going to shine light, and it's going to be so intense, and the intensity of the process in terms of what's happening is going to cause everyone to make an intelligent decision over these issues. See, we like gray areas, and we've played with the gray areas for long times, but what happens in the end, there's no gray area. No.
Shadows
Because
fall
the
away.
beast says, you do what I say or I'm killing you.
Yeah.
And God says, you do what He says and you're going to die. Whoop. Guess what? What does that mean?
Choice.
That means everybody dies. That's what it means. Now, the question is, are you going to obey the one who's a
Give you
beast?
life.
Or are you going to obey the one who can take the dead and give them life and resurrect you? Which one are you going to obey? Right? And who's your prince and what is your
Who
principle?
have you
And
seen?
really, who are you going to allow to educate you? That's also a choice, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and that's all part of the
It's all
decision
part-
process, right?
Yeah, it's all that process that we see happening now, you know. And some people in the world, they're not happy with the education that's happening to themselves or their kids, right? Because they're seeing that and they're saying, I don't think I want part of this education. To me, this isn't freedom to go through, to go on in the line of socialism or anything like that. To me, that doesn't look like that. They're not spiritual at this time, but they're seeing that
Right.
this isn't the education.
Well, and see, the Spirit of God is working on lots of people, but the idea of humanism, of us solving our own problem, this is the idea that we keep coming back to, right? I mean, that's the only idea that creatures
Yes,
have,
yes.
is creatures fixing the problem.
Yes.
So no matter where you are in the process of history, it's proven over and over again that every time we think we have enough intelligence to now fix the problem so we can live happily ever after, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We end up making it worse than
Right.
it was before, right? But the new generations, like this 15-year-old girl, whoever she is, running around about climate crisis, she has no clue. She's 15 years old. What does she know? Nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, well, if we don't do this, the planet's going to die in our generation. Well, how the heck do you know? You don't know anything.
This is
Yes.
our only
All she
hope.
knows is what she's been told, that
Yes.
she's believing lies. She doesn't know.
She's a good poster child.
Right. So the point is these kids have no clue.
No.
But humanism, us saving ourselves, is the only answer. This is where, by the way, this is what the papacy is doing to unite the peoples of the world, to unite the religions of the world. This is what Sue mentioned to me earlier, that some Catholics are very ticked off at the Pope because he's changing the Catholic religion. Well, yeah, he's changing the Catholic religion because to bring all the religions of the world under his umbrella, he must step away from Christ having anything to do with salvation, and he makes religion is just basically humanism. That if you're a humanist, then you're good. That's good enough. You're a good religion. That's what Buddhism is. Save yourself, or Catholicism, or Hinduism, or Taoism, or Satanism. It doesn't matter. Atheism. That doesn't matter. Fine. You're a good Catholic now. Because why? Because it's all based on humanism. If you're a humanist, you believe you can save yourself, then you're in the kingdom of the beast. You're under his control. And so he can gather all these religions of the world that we think are so different and can't be. No, there's a basis that's a harmony there. And he's doing it. And this,
We all serve the same God, is what he says.
and this idea of humanism is sweeping through our own church.
Yes.
It's being taught to our own people. And this idea is there's no such thing as absolute truth.
Yeah, because somebody said to me a little while ago, there's a big, very popular movement in our church to realign with the mother church.
Yeah.
And then they waited to see what my response was, and I'm like, I am not going there.
I know.
Have you heard that, Pastor Tim?
Have I heard it? I've seen because I'm in education, I've seen the tendency for years when our church adopted worldly standards of education. Basically, we're teaching our kids humanism, and now my son's going to college. And telling me what's going on there, and it's like, they have the Black Lives Matter and the LBGT, and they have all this other garbage going on, which is basically humanism. And that we have to do these things to save the planet, and like, okay, so now we're into saving planets. Okay, right. This stuff is sweeping in, and this idea that there's no such thing as truth, that everything is relative, that's humanism. And that your reality is your reality. This is all.
My God is
This
your
is
God.
all humanism. It's all the same mess,
That's
and
what
it's sweeping in through Adventism too. And you will see many people that claim to be standing for the truth will be capitulating to this. There's many people in our church that believe that the climate crisis is real and we should be climbing on board. That social justice is the new gospel. We need forget this. I had this talking to this one kid. He just graduated from his theology department. He's now a pastor. What is this foolishness about Jesus going from one apartment to another apartment in heaven? That has nothing to do with anything. We need to be out. We need to be out feeding hungry people and take care of the homeless. That's the gospel that Jesus preached. Jesus didn't preach all this. What's all this mess about the Sabbath? Who cares about all that stuff? No, we just need to love people. We have humanism. We need to save people, and we're saying, so giving a hungry person a piece of bread is saving them. Excuse me, what are you going to do tomorrow? Well, I fed them yesterday. Yeah, but they're hungry today too. And then what about their eternity? Where are they going to be for eternity? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I fed them, so I'm doing my job. No, and you're not. So it's the short-term goal of fixing human society's problems is somehow now the new gospel. It's a social justice gospel. But we're not saving them for eternity. No, we're just making ourselves feel better by putting a Band-Aid on someone's immediate problem.
And ignoring my problem.
That's part of the problem, Brian, with the AA thing is the spirit of relativism is so prevalent there. It's like, well, you can have your God and I'll have my God, and we're all good,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm okay, you're okay, but they're not okay.
And that's why it's coming to be a crime for you to lower someone's comfort level.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not just in society, it's also coming into our church. That truth is no longer truth. Truth is, the truth that they're defending is that you can't say anything that hurts anybody's feelings. And if you do, that's evil. That's sin.
That's hate speech. That's hate speech.
Well, where's the Bible? Which commandment is that?
That has already come into Canada.
Which of the 10 Commandments is that? Oh, it's not there. Oh,
Spiritual
really?
abuse if you tell the truth.
So this is where it's going. And that's why this is how Satan plans to shut up God's messenger and pressure them not to say anything that will reveal the truth of what's going on, so that he can push everybody down this primrose path to where he wants to go, which he's doing very well. And the churches of this world, the Christian churches, Protestant churches, have already caved in, and Adventism is caving. But there's supposed to be, and there will be, a group of people that will not cave. And by the way, there's some people in other churches that are not Adventists that see the problem, and they are not caving either.
Right.
God will have a people that will stand,
Right.
and they will stand for truth.
Right.
But this is going to quickly come to a head. Now, see, the battle is for the mind. This is what the battle is for. It's to control the mind. And this is what
We control your thinking, then
So
the plan is going forward.
So this is where we're at, and we're actually in closer stages to the end than many of us would like to imagine or would care to understand, because we've been asleep for so long. We thought that someone was just going to come along and try to make us go to a building on Sunday, and that was the it. And so because that's not happening, then, well, lights go. We're just waiting for Jesus to come. We're fine. You know, and so our churches just limp along. And we have not understood the humanist. There's one of the reasons why our evangelism is not effective, because we're trying to reach other Christians with a more correct doctrine when the world is atheist and humanist and don't even believe God exists. So we're talking to people about the mark of the beast, and they think you're crazy. What are you talking about? Well, don't go to church on Sunday. I don't go to church at all. There's no God whatsoever. And then what do we say to them? Well, I don't know what to say now. Well, you know, so our effectiveness to reach society and to deal with the issues that are actually there reveals that our evangelism is based on us and our thinking. We're telling people what we think is important for them, not what is important for them.
Yeah.
So it isn't about them, it's about us. And this has distorted our perspective of the end time events and limited our view of understanding the prophecies.
Right.
But when you look at the prophecies through new eyes, and you deal with the issues that the Bible talks about in terms of kingdom dynamics, all of a sudden this happens. And then you start seeing what you never saw before.
Right, because it's a ponder of the evidence, right? And the evidence isn't in the stuff that we are saying. The evidence is in the work that he has done in us.
That's right, because then this is where the eternal gospel, the key that was given to us by the spirit of prophecy, which has not been understood. Because, you know, here I'm talking to you about how we work individually, and all of a sudden I'm talking about the world and how it's, well, how can I connect those two? Well, the point here is the eternal gospel deals with principles that continue, and they don't stop, right? Now, I know that looks like an atom or it looks like a universe, but the point here is that's because that's how God creates reality. And here's I can deal with what's in me, or I can deal with what's between me and Brian, or I can deal between what's me and this group, or I can deal with me and the church, or me and this town, or me and this city, or me and this state, or me and this country, or me and this world, or me and this universe, and you can keep going out, and the principles are always the same. They don't change. The application of the principle changes, but the principle itself never changes, because it's eternal, it's God, it's based on God. And so therefore, I can read the prophecies of Daniel and look at Daniel's struggle and what happened to him, and I can see the reason from the principle and see how it plays out in time and space, in this time and this space, just as well as in his time and his space. And the amazing thing about the book of Daniel is when you read, Daniel has this vision, and he says, I was sick. I couldn't function for days. Oh, why is he so sick? What's Daniel seeing?
The truth.
Himself. That beast with a little horn playing his game, what does Daniel see? That's me. And Daniel's sick. He can't function. He can't go on as if life is normal because he's had a revelation of God. He sees himself as he really is. He's a beast, and he doesn't want to be a beast. So he can't function. He's sick. And he says, this thing is so profound. How can this thing be so real? I don't understand. How does this apply in terms of saving the world? The more I look at myself, the worse I get. How does that save anybody? Mm-hmm. Well, the answer isn't in me. It's not humanism. It's in God.
It's his righteousness.
But see, so Daniel sees, and Daniel writes, and the way he writes is profound, so that I can reason from what he writes in history, and then I can understand what happened in history from principle, and then see how it's played out again and again in me or in us. And that's what makes the prophecy so profound. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that applies to
Well, at some point we can go where you want to. I thought maybe we could take a break. I get a drink of water, and then I'd like to talk about, if you're interested, at some point. The other thing I was asked to do is talk about the kingship. And then, what I'd rather do is, if you guys have any questions or someplace you want to go, we can go there.